Do-do-do. Okay, welcome back. So today we're just gonna finish off our user resolver. So this is what we have so far. We're actually gonna change it up to add in more than just the user's query. We're also gonna include some mutations. And mutation is basically a query that where you could pass in values and mutate the data within our server. So let's open up our resolver and let's see what do we need to do. So we need to both log in and register. So I'm gonna make a login routes as well as a register route. And luckily we have these functionality within our user service, which we're just gonna use. But before we get there, we have to make a couple changes in our GraphQL file. When we log in and register, we want to pass back in the token, but we also don't want the type to be used. We don't want the token to be accessed through any other route. So we're gonna make another type, and I'm just gonna name it auth, where we could get the token, which is a string. And just for the sake of sanity, I'm also gonna add the username, but I'm not gonna add in the ID because I don't want it to ever be requeried, so it's not gonna be saved into the cache. And I don't think any of these other values are gonna be quite necessary. Maybe the created date, but I'm gonna leave that off for now. And in the mutations, we just need to define the type, like so. Oops. And it's gonna give back the auth type. And same for register. Okay, I opened up parentheses with login and register because these are gonna take in a couple of arguments. It's gonna take in the username, type string, and the password, type string. And both of them are gonna be required, so I'm gonna add the exclamation point. And it's gonna be the same for register. And now we just need to add in our mutation resolvers, which is here. And it's gonna take in the decorator of mutation. Mutation, there we go. And where we can get the arguments, args of the username of types string, and the args password of type string. And of course, we're going to just need to return this user service dot. This is login, so we're gonna do that. And if you remember, we have a special DTO, data transfer object, and we're gonna use it here. But we have to construct it with the arguments that's being passed in. So we're just gonna do const user of type user DTO equals to an object with username and password. And we'll pass it in here. and then finally for register, it's gonna be the same process. Mutation. And if you've worked with GraphQL before, you know that there's a lot of destructuring that happens by convention. So you could do that here, like so. Username, password, which comes from the arguments that's being passed in, and you're destructuring the two values out. And I wonder if TypeScript will let you do this. No, I guess not. All right. And of course, we're gonna do the same thing. User DTO, username, password, this dot user service dot register user. All right, and let's test it out. Start dev. After the server runs, we could check the GraphQL playground. And one more. There it is. And okay, so let's log in. And once we log in, we want the username and the token. And username is going to be username. And password is going to be password. Also, a note, you have to use the double quotes here because GraphQL won't understand the single quotes. So send cannot query field login of type. Oh, right. You have to designate the type on the outside, so mutation, since it's not a query. There we go. We got the username and the password, or not the password, the token. And if we do a register, this might give an error if we're using the same username. So let's see if the error works. User already exists, which is perfect. I'm gonna want to clean this up maybe later, but we'll see what happens. So we just do this to a different username. So let's go with Kelvin. And there we go. So both of them works. I'm gonna prefer using this syntax just for type safety, because I am not sure if you could destructure and pass in types. So, yep. So now we have the mutations going, and we have the query for all users. All we needed to be able to do is actually pass in this token and authorize through GraphQL. And we can by going down here and changing the headers. And let's see. In the headers, it's going to be of type authorization, which is in double quotes. And bearer. I think I copied this, but let's copy it again. And now we need to go ahead and change our authentication model to take care of this. So to do that, I'm going to actually close the server. Let's go into our auth guard. So right now, the auth guard is checking the request object, but that only exists on the HTTP request. It doesn't exist in the GraphQL context. So we actually have to change our GraphQL module over here. And I believe it is context. And we want to take the request object from Express and pass it into the GraphQL context. And I did a little shortcut by, instead of calling it request, I'm going to put inside of the headers. And we're going to pass in the request.headers here. And now in our auth guard, we're just going to add another if statement. to check if it's a GraphQL context or a HTTP context. So let's see, what did I do? I did a if request do all of this. So put that in there. Else, we're gonna expect it. We're gonna assume the else clause is gonna be GraphQL. We might have to change this later if we're gonna have another server type in here, but I think that'll be good for now. So I'm just gonna do const ctx for context, and we're gonna create a GraphQL execution context from our context. And this context is coming from the can activate argument. And all we need to do is check if the context has headers. And let's also check if it has authorization inside of it. Return true if it does. And let's see, we're also gonna we're basically gonna do the same thing as this. So return false and ctx.user equals await this dot validate token ctx dot headers dot authorization. So basically the same code is up here, just under the context GraphQL. I'm gonna remove these spaces just to make it a little cleaner, I think. Now we also need to check if the auth guard still works, and I'm gonna change the service a little bit because we have a show all here, but we don't have a show just one. And I'm just gonna make one right now. So we're gonna check for the username, and we're gonna find the user in typeform. So await this dot user repository dot find one where username is equal to username, and I'm gonna take the same relations. So here relations is gonna be ideas and bookmarks. And return user dot to response object. False for showing the token. Yeah, no, that's fine. Okay. So with that, let's add in two more queries. A username is going to be string, and this time it's going to be required, and we're going to give back one user. And then we're also going to do a query of who am I, without passing in a username. Instead, we're going to get the username from the auth guard. So now we just need to add in the queries for these two queries. Let me rephrase that. We're going to add in the resolvers for these two queries in the user resolver. So I'm going to add it up here next to the other queries. So query user and this one is going to take in the args of username, which is a string, return this dot user service dot read username, and also let's just do the who am I really quick. so our server doesn't blow up. And we just do a return nothing. Alright, so let's start the server again and try this out. Okay, cool. So we're not gonna do a mutation now. We're just gonna do a query of username is gonna be username, and we get the ID, username, and let's do the bookmarks. Send bookmarks of type idea must have, oh right, ID idea. There we go. Okay, so the user works. Now if we do a who am I, this should return null. Yeah. So we need to fix that. So let's see. Where did it go? Okay. So in our who am I, we're gonna use the auth guard. So we're just gonna use guards new auth guard, and in our auth guard, remember that we're adding .user to the context. So wait a minute. Did I do that right? Oh, I missed one step. Dot get context. Yeah, there we go. That's that's what I was missing. Okay. So if we do that, we can get the user object from the context object. So let's import context. And we actually just want the token, so we're just going to get user. And this will get us the user that we just attached to the context right here. And we're just going to do user and destructure the username from the user object. S.user service dot read username. Alright. So once this goes, okay, we could use the who am I query, and it's gonna read the user from this token here, this long ass token, and it comes back as colon. Now if we do a mutation login, username is going to be username, password is password, and I just want the token, and take this and replace this old token. Come on. With the new token, we could find the who am I is going to be the person that we just logged in as, which is username. Okay, so that's basically, so we finished off the user resolver today, and we went a little bit with authentication. We're adding in how we can do it through GraphQL. And that's it. I'm going to get rid of this unnecessary import. Okay, cool. So I will see you guys in the next video. User resolver.